Welcome to a Crop and Create delivered video. I'm designer Jen Gallacher, and these videos are hosted by Scrapbook and Cards Today magazine. Again, I am working with the winter kit, and I'm going to be using this 8.5 by 11 inch sketch. And to start out, I am going to use a sheet of white cardstock onto which I will place the pattern papers that I'm going to use for this collection, and for this layout. The first one is going to be from the December documented collection. And I'm going to use the green dot pattern paper, and I'll use it at the very bottom of the layout, making sure to align all the pieces. You could also cut out this entire piece, the 8.5 by 11 inch foundation, from the green dot if you prefer, but I wanted to save the pattern papers and I was less worried about using up the cardstock. So I will use the stripe part of pattern paper for the adhesive and the tree on the top. And let me show you how it matches the sketch so far. So the sketch thoroughly inspired me to use the tree on the top, and then I used a pattern on the bottom. Now across the center of the sketch is a pattern paper, or rather scalloped edge. What I'm going to use is I'm going to use the other side of that tree pattern paper because it brings in some of that red, and then I'm going to use a border sticker that is pinked on the end. And you'll notice that I've cut this out with the sticker backing on the back so that as I was playing around with my layout, I could get a feel for where everything would lie. And I'm going to attach the red dot first. And I'm only adding adhesive in the center so that I can gently lift it and add that border sticker beneath. Make sure we get that straight across there. And then when you're adding things like border stickers, you want to try and center the design. And I usually do this by placing it upside down. And then I start gently placing it behind the border strip that I have cut. And then I want to try again to tug and pull it so that it is centered. And then I can come back on the back side and trim off the excess. I just do that with a pair of straight scissors, and then you can either save that excess sticker or you can toss it. So something fun that I want to do is I'm going to use the sketch, and I cut a sheet of cardstock for the background, and it shows it horizontally like this, but I'm going to do a vertical alignment with it, and I'm going to use the stamp set again. And this is a great way to stretch your supplies. What you will do is you will select a stamped image. I'm going to be using this larger snowflake stamp. And I'm going to create my own pattern paper. So I will place that stamp on a block, an acrylic block, and then I will select a pattern paper. I'm going to be using this Real Red from Stampin' Up. And then I'm going to use the sketch that I printed out and turn it over. And I'll move my layout out of the way, and I'll place my cardstock with the textured side up. And then to create my own pattern paper, I'm going to repeatedly stamp this snowflake stamp on the cardstock. And you'll notice that I'm creating a pattern. And I just do this by eyeballing it, but you could get as precise as you want by measuring and marking ahead of time. You could also do a random pattern. And it doesn't have to be perfect, as elements will be covering some of the stamped image. You could also mix in, there are more than one snowflake sizes on this stamp set. You can mix that in for a little bit more interest. Make sure you press firmly. And I usually try and have some of the images off the end of the stamp, or rather the paper, so it looks like real pattern paper would. So you can see I've created my own pattern paper for this layout just by using a stamp, some stamping ink, and some cardstock. We'll go ahead and mount this on the center of our layout. And you'll notice how much more interesting it is than just a regular sheet of cardstock would be. Now let's refer back to the sketch. On the sketch, it just has the background. I'm going to embellish it a little bit with some strips of pattern paper and some of that gold tape. And I have cut the red text pattern paper And I'm going to cut the ends into a pennant. Then I have some of that green dot pattern paper, and I'm going to do the same thing. And then the last thing I have is some of that gold tape, and I'll cut the bottom. Same thing. You could also cut them at a diagonal if you want. You'll notice that I have a fat, a medium, and a small size pennant. And then we'll just adhere them down the center of the layout by placing them on almost the edge of that cardstock. We'll start building up several pennant shapes. And then the gold tape goes right down the center. So there you can see that we varied a little bit from the sketch, but we created a great cluster. Now for the Christmas tree shape, there is a die cut shape that can be downloaded that comes with this kit, and this is the Christmas tree shape that I'm going to be using for the layout, and we'll just adhere that. We will decorate it in a bit, but first I want to get it onto the layout. And then I want to dress up the top of these pennants a little bit, so I'm going to lift them up a little bit and use some of this leftover white ribbon I have, and we'll tie it into a bow if there's enough, and not if there's not, depending on if you've already used it. And slide it up as high as we can get it. Then to the center of the bow, I thought it would be fun to add one of these flare buttons that comes in the collection, and this is the candy cane one. There is also a gold ampersand if you prefer that, and we'll just place that right in the middle. To give it a little more sturdiness, I'm going to add some glue dots behind the ribbon to help it hold in place. Now for the photos, I am going to be using some of that Jelly Bean Soup Polaroid frame die cut sheet, and I've pre-cut the frames, and I'm going to layer them on my layout as such. A little bit different than the orientation on the sketch, but I thought it was kind of fun, and you can move them around to determine whatever direction you want them to be, and then you simply need to print a photo that will fit in here. So measuring the square, print or cut one of your existing photos to fit inside the Polaroid frame. So I have pre-cut these photos so that we can easily lay them down, and I'm going to add adhesive again just around the edges of the frame, and then we'll mount them right on top of the frame. And you want to make sure that if you're using one of the die cut frames that has words in it, that you need to decide if you want the photo to show through on the bottom, and I don't. So I made sure that I trimmed off my photo enough that the pattern paper would show behind. So that's a decision you need to make beforehand. With the longer ones that are more solid, then you can easily cut the photos a little bit longer. If you find after you place the photo you have a little bit too much, simply use your scissors to trim off the excess photo. And then you can mount your photos directly onto the layout. I'm placing mine a little bit askew. And again, I'm trying to watch where I'm placing the ho 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 sign or word on that Polaroid frame. To the bottom frame, I'm going to add one of the Elle Studio die cut tags, and it says remember. And we'll let the arrow part of it hang off just a little bit. Below the two tags, I'm going to build up this cluster down here a little bit more with one of the Elle Studio Merry Christmas tags, and it has a chalkboard feel to it. Just add it to the cluster, and this just makes this bottom area seem a little bit more present. To bring in some of the light blue in this layout, I have taken some of the shimmer cardstock and I've used a border punch from Stampin' Up, and I'm going to add just a border strip at the very top of the red cardstock. And something fun that you can do if you use a punch like this is to distress it a little bit by simply crumpling up some of the paper. This gives it a little bit more texture. Another thing that you can do with the Polaroid frames that are die cut is if you are a mister, you can easily mist them to recolor them. Just put them on a surface, a protective surface, and then spray mist all over them. To the center of the Christmas tree, I'm going to add the fun paper clip that came with the collection, and I'm going to just attach it to the photo on the left by sliding it onto the photo. And you might have to manipulate the clip just a little bit to get it on, and then you can push it flat so that it stays. And then if it doesn't stick as much as you want it to, you can come back and machine stitch it. To the top, I'm going to add the title. You'll notice that on the sketch, the title is beneath the tied twine, but I'm going to move the title over just a little bit, and I'm going to use those glitter alphabet from American Crafts, and I'm going to spell out Noel. And I first place them gently because I might change my mind about placement, so I want to see what it looks like before I actually push them down all the way. And they are glittered with a see-through glitter. And then once I have the placement where I want, then I'll press them down into the page firmly. So I'm going to go ahead and attach the tree a little bit, and then I'll show you where we're going to add our journaling and a few other embellishments. So I add a little bit more adhesive behind the actual paper clip. It may take a little bit to dry, and then you can print your journaling right below in this bottom corner. Rather than place it on this tag sticking out, I'm just going to add it here, and I'm just going to talk about my son. And it says, James always looks forward to Christmas. Then we haven't used the enamel dots on one of our layouts yet, so I'm going to start incorporating those. And I usually like to do a mix of sizes, and then I might throw in something unexpected like a sequin. And then whatever I do down here, I like to come up to the top and do something similar so that there is a little bit of a visual triangle going on. So there you have another layout that uses the winter kit. Again, this is the sketch that we were using, and this is the completed layout. For more information about Crop and Create Delivered, please visit www.scrapbookandcards.com or www.scrapbookandcardstodaymag.typepad.com.